What's going on, everyone? D'Angelo Russell. He was very disappointing, like bad. And it sucks because I'm somebody that was in the camp trying to defend him, talking about him being better. Game 2, he was great. I'm out here talking my talk, right? Like, I told you, right? And no, it sucks, right? But when you're wrong, you're wrong. I was wrong. It happens. Be wrong again at some point in my life, you know? And, I know some people are going to say what they're going to say. They're going to make fun of me. They're going to say whatever. But, it comes with the territory, right? And I still stand by all of it because, again, I'm not going to root against a player that's on the Lakers. It doesn't make sense to me. Because if D'Lo was great, we win. D'Lo is bad, we lose. It's that simple. Right? Obviously, we needed other people to step up, as we saw in Game 2. But again, I'm not going to root against, people are relishing right now in the fact that D'Lo was a bum in Game 3. Right? I don't get that. Right? So you'd rather be right than the Lakers win. It's kind of how it feels like, at least to me personally. But D'Lo was bad. And again, I was wrong. And the people that said D'Lo was going to be bad were right. But it sucks because guess what? Now the Lakers are more likely than not going home. Right? Unless some crazy miracle that has never happened before happens, which you don't go from losing to a team 11 straight times, all of a sudden beating them 4 straight, right? It just doesn't really happen. But D'Lo in general, it's going to be very interesting this offseason because D'Lo just fumbled his bag. He had it. He was on the cusp, right? Even if the Lakers lose, let's say the Lakers got swept, but D'Lo was great, he would have gotten paid, and he would have gotten paid fat. D'Lo just fumbled a major bag because he just had a historically great season, but once again failed to deliver in the playoffs. But he was terrible in Game 1, bounced back great in Game 2, right? If he would have continued that, I'm not saying he had to go 7 of 11 from 3 and just be lights out or anything, but if he would have been good to where it was noticeably man, D'Lo was good, right? And the Lakers lose Game 3, and then he's the same thing in Game 4, he would have gotten paid because the team would have been man, he can make plays, he can hit shots, he can do all these things, and he just showed he can show up in the playoffs, right? He's not your number 1 or number 2 option, but man, we have, these guys here that can do that. Let's just add D'Lo and boom, we might be able to contend for a championship. But now teams are going to see that and go, he's not going to show up when we need him, right? So now the only teams that are really going to want D'Lo are going to be the teams that are middle of the pack or tanking teams. Detroit might go, yeah, hey, we'll take D'Lo. Let's see what we can do. Maybe he can be good for us while we're developing our young guys, right? Orlando, I think, is a team that still might be interested in D'Lo because hey, he'd be a guy that could do that. Maybe San Antonio, right? Because San Antonio, they're probably going to be a couple of years before they actually are contending for championships. They might be hey, what? He's a good playmaker. He's going to look for Wemby, right? If let's say they fail at getting, a DeJounte Murray or something like that, because based on reports, they kind of are not interested in Trae Young. So it's okay, maybe they might go, hey, let the Lakers get Trae and we'll take D'Lo, maybe work out some 3-team deal. And it's okay, cool. Because more likely than not now, D'Lo's going to opt in. Right? Because I don't see a team coming and offering 25 to 30 million for him, 4 years, $100 million contract. I don't see that given his playoff performance. Because even Orlando's in the playoffs right now. Right? So either A, he's going to have to take a discount to go elsewhere, which I don't think he's going to want to do. He's going to want his money. Or B, he opts in and the Lakers work out some type of trade, which I think will probably be the case, right? Let's say Orlando wants D'Lo. D'Lo opts in and the Lakers work out a deal to go and trade him to Orlando, and then they get back some pieces, whatever those pieces are. Again, we'll kind of explore that in the offseason. But D'Lo just fumbled it. He had it, and he just messed it up. And again, it's going to put the Lakers in a very interesting position, right? Because yes, there's always the off chance D'Lo opts out and goes explores that, but what team is going to line up to go give him 20, 30, 40 million, right? I just don't see a team necessarily doing that. Unless you get the JJ Redick rule where it's that will give him a huge bag for 1 year. I think it was when he was on the Sixers, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments. But it's JJ Redick basically got this like huge inflated contract that he was not anywhere worth, but it was just kind of like a placeholder. And then he got it like a smaller, like you've seen it happen a couple times in the NBA. But JJ Redick is kind of the more notable guy that many people will know. So that's why it's known as the JJ, right? So maybe a team does that where they're like, hey, we got to spend some salary here. Like, let's throw D'Lo like $22 million. I mean, Indiana just kind of did the same thing with Bruce Brown, right? Where he was going to the Lakers for the mid-level exception, but the Pacers were like, hey, we could spend some money. Let's sign him to double that, and then we can use him as a trade chip later. And then they were able to go get Pascal Siakam, right? So maybe a team does that with D'Lo, but I think more likely than not, he opts in. And then the Lakers kind of figure out, and I'm sure they'll have those conversations of like, hey, like, do you want to hang out for another year, or do you want us to move off of you? Whether it's the trade deadline or whatever. But more likely than not, I think he ends up going in like some type of 3-team deal, especially if the Lakers really do want to try to land Trae Young, right? D'Lo's $18.5 million or whatever it is would be very helpful in getting there, right? Because you could do something where like, maybe D'Lo goes to a 3rd team or whatever. Like if Orlando wants him, like maybe Orlando sends like a piece or two to Atlanta. D'Lo goes to Orlando, and then like Rui and whatever Gabe go to. They probably want Austin Reeves. So say Austin Reeves and Rui go to the Atlanta Hawks. We get Trae. Like Trae, Gabe Vincent, and then fill out the rest of the roster. I could see something like that happening potentially in the offseason. But, look, I don't think D'Lo's a bad player by any stretch. I just think he needs one very specific role, which may be what other teams value, right? Like a team like the Pelicans, right? Maybe a good example. They don't, like, his shooting would just be icing on the cake, but they really need a playmaker. They really need somebody that can get guys in their spots and hit the open man and whatnot. Like, same thing with a team like Orlando. A team like Orlando might value D'Lo because they might go, like anything he provides on the offensive side would be just icing on the cake because we have all these other guys that we're relying on. We just need him to be able to make plays, run the pick and roll, find the open man, and then occasionally hit shots. Where the Lakers, we needed him to be the 3rd guy, right? And he's not that. But if he's like the 4th, 5th guy for a team, then I think somebody might go and give him that. But I don't see somebody going to pay $25 million for D'Lo to be their 5th guy or their 4th guy. Probably not. Right? Like, because he's not like that premier guy. So, again, I kind of default to like him opting in, and then now he's an expiring contract. And even if we don't trade him, like, let's say we go and just an example, right? Let's say we go and we trade for Donovan Mitchell, right? Again, just an example. But we don't trade D'Lo. Like, they're like, we don't want D'Lo, keep D'Lo, right? Like, you could keep D'Lo during the regular season and even like slot him alongside Donovan, especially Donovan Mitchell, the way he defended this year. He was like all defensive type guy, right? So like this year, you could kind of see how that works. And if it doesn't work, or you still have concerns like, once we get to the playoffs, D'Lo is going to be a no-show. Well, you have an $18 million expiring contract that you can use to maybe go get some role guys to fill out the roster, right? So again, to me, it just depends on what the Lakers are able to acquire this offseason, and then do they move D'Lo immediately and go get those complementary pieces, right? Because, again, if Orlando's like, hey, we'll give you, which I don't think they would do, but like they're like, hey, we'll give you Suggs and whatever else, like Gary Harris or something, and it's like, oh man, like that would be great, right? Especially if you get like a Trae. It's like, man, like we could do Trae, and then you got Suggs as like that all defensive guy. I mean, the guy's been ridiculous this year. You have him, and then you can put like Jared Vanderbilt alongside him. Now, between Suggs, Vando, and Anthony Davis, you got more than enough defense to to mask Trae Young if you have the right coach, which is the key. But I know it's gonna be kind of interesting to see how it plays out. But again, it's disappointing. It sucks because, again, I want the Lakers' success. It wasn't even so much about being right or wrong. It's just like, if he's good, the Lakers are good. And unfortunately, he just wasn't. And it wasn't just him. I know people are going to point the finger and blame D'Lo, because people like to point at one guy, but it wasn't. I mean, Darvin Ham was bad. Rui was bad. Reeves was bad. Right? Like, LeBron wasn't great like we thought he would be. Like, there's a lot of things that went into this. It wasn't just D'Lo to where it's like, D'Lo's trash. Like, no, it was several things. But now, again, it sucks. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you think like, D'Lo, got to get rid of him, got to unload him in the offseason? Do you think like, no, like he'd be great in like, if you get some other pieces, which I don't disagree, right? Like, again, like let's say you get Donovan Mitchell, right? And like having like a Mitchell Mitchell, D'Lo, and then like Vandal, LeBron, and AD, that might not be bad, right? Because you can always have a Mitchell or D'Lo on the court at all times as like playmakers, especially when LeBron's getting rest. But also you'd have Donovan Mitchell as that point of attack. You'd have Jared Vanderbilt as that defensive piece, and right, like you'd have a nice balance of like Donovan Mitchell, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and then D'Lo, especially during the regular season. You'd probably be the best offense in the league, right? But even in the playoffs, right, D'Lo now kind of defaults to like your fourth offensive option, right, rather than the first, second, or third. Like D'Lo's now the fourth. So if he does have a bad game and he does disappear and he does have a stinker and a clunker, one, he's probably not taking as many shots, and two, you can get away with that depending on what the other pieces are on the bench, right? So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But anyway, again, love to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.